Well, hello, friends. Thank you for watching God is Real again. I'm just happy to see that so many people are watching. I thank you. Today, I want to talk to you about a man named Moses. And prior to that, the Israelites were in bondage for over 400 years in a land called Goshen. And they were growing, they were multiplying so fast that the king, the Pharaoh, became concerned. And he told his aides, he said, these Israelites are multiplying too fast. If we don't do something and we get invaded by another country, the Israelites are going to join them and fight against us. So we need to have a plan. So at that point, the king decided to decree an order that every male child born was to be killed, because the Israelites women were having babies left and right very fast. So one child was born, and the mother saw that he was just a goodly child. There was just something different about him. She just decided to hide him, to the point where as he was growing, it became too noticeable, and she had to have a plan that she didn't want him to die. So she made a little basket and put the baby in there, and his sister put him in the river and hid him among the reeds, and stood back and watched to see what would happen. And at that point in time, the Pharaoh's daughter, she would come down to the river and bathe, and heard a baby crying in a basket. She had her aides bring the basket to her, and when they opened it, they found the baby in the basket. And she thought it was so lovely, so adorable. She said, I want to keep him. So she knew right off he was a Hebrew child. And her father had decreed that all the baby males would be killed. So she hid him and raised him. And as a little girl, actually the mother raised her, the little girl was watching. She ran over to the king's daughter, the Pharaoh's daughter, and she said, what would you like? Would you like me to find someone to take care of the baby? Pharaoh's daughter says yes. So the baby's mother herself took care of him and raised him and got paid for it. You see how God works? She got paid for raising her own child. So the Pharaoh's daughter named the baby Moses. And Moses, the name meant drawn out of the water. Back then, when people were named, their names meant something. So every name was meaning whatever the parents wanted to mean, that's what it meant. So anyway, Moses grew up. He was educated by the Egyptians, well educated, was very talented, and he had a choice whether to stay with the Egyptians or live amongst the Hebrews, his own people. And he chose to be with his own people. His own people were despised. The Egyptians looked down on him. And one day, Moses came about where an Egyptian and a Hebrew were fighting, and Moses interfered and killed the Egyptian. Well, the news of that got to the king, and Moses became a wanted man. So Moses fled. He fled to another land. And when he got there, he was by a well where there was women there. They were sisters, and they were trying to water their sheep, but they were being hindered by another group of shepherds. But Moses interfered and watered those ladies' sheep. And so he became known to the family and married one and stayed there for 40 years. So he was out in the desert for over 40 years. So one day as he was walking, he noticed a burning bush. As he looked at the burning bush, he noticed it was not consumed by the fire. So he just continued to look, and as he walked over to the bush, a voice called out and said, "Moses, take off your shoes. You're standing on holy ground." It was a holy God speaking to Moses. And God told him, "I want you to go back to Egypt, where you ran away from. For the king that sought to kill you, he now is dead. So we have another king on the throne. So I want you to go there. And my people are in bondage. I heard their cries. I want you to tell them, the king, the message that let my people go." And Moses was reluctant to go, more or less was resisting the call of God. God decided, okay, well, we'll get your brother to speak for you, because apparently Moses had a speech impediment. So God said, your brother can speak, but you tell him what to say, and I will tell you what to say. So they went to Egypt and confronted the king and said, "The Lord has sent me," and he said, "Let my people go." And God told Moses prior to that the king, the Pharaoh, would resist. Now God didn't choose to pick on the Pharaoh, for the Pharaoh's heart was far away from God. And God has infinite wisdom, infinite knowledge. God knew that this Pharaoh would never turn to God. So why not use him to strengthen the Israelites? So God told Moses, "You're going to tell him, let my people go." He will resist. And he did. So God sent plague after plague. And one of the plagues was he turned the river into blood, the water. All the fish would die. Then he sent a plague of frogs. The frogs were worshipped by the Egyptians, and to them, the frogs were a god of fertility. And they were very ugly frogs. They resembled a toad, and they didn't really hop. They crawled, and they were everywhere, in their beds, on the counters. I mean, if they had counters, in their food, they were everywhere. Now, this should have been an insult to the Egyptians, because the frogs was a god that they worshiped. And yet, They were a pestilence. Then God sent the lice. God sent flies, and these flies were called the Blatta orientatus. They're like a beetle. They inflict painful bites. They were everywhere. So the Egyptians had to tolerate that, and the Pharaoh still wouldn't release the Israelites. So then God sent a plague on the cattle, that all the cattle would die. And the cattle were worshipped by Egyptians, mainly the bull, the cow, and the ram. They were all under the order of God. God is supreme. He's a sovereign God. He is the only powerful God. So that was a God they worshiped. And yet the God couldn't do anything for their God couldn't do anything for them, the Israelites. Then God sent boils upon their bodies. Then he sent hails. These hails were big and powerful and killed many, many, many animals and people. Then he sent locusts. They ate up all the crops. I mean, the food was just gone. Then God sent darkness. Oh my, the Egyptians, they worshiped the sun. And yet, the sun was their supreme God. And the Egyptians, their God couldn't help them, could it? The darkness overwhelmed the sun. It was completely dark. And all the while this was happening, where the Israelites were, they didn't get any of these plagues. The sun kept shining for them. Their cattle didn't die. They didn't get the boils. They didn't get the frogs, the lice. What an example. So God made all these miracles so that the Israelites could be strengthened, could see how powerful the God they worshiped was. God is God and God alone. Nothing's impossible for him. So the Israelites, in the end, the last plague was death. The firstborn son of all was going to be dead when the death angel would pass over. And God told the Israelites, I want you to put blood on the top post of your door, on the side posts of your doors. And when the death angel sees that, he will pass over your house. And nothing will happen, for it was going to be the firstborn child and the firstborn animal throughout the land. So all the Israelites, they smeared blood on the top doorposts, on the side doorposts, and they didn't have to go through watching their child die. So when the king's child died, he became frustrated. He became just not himself. So he decided, he said, all right, Moses, go ahead. Take your people, take your cattle, take everything, and leave. Just get away from us. And God had decreed prior to what would happen that the Egyptians would give all their jewels, their gold, the silver. They would give it to the Israelites as they left the land of Goshen. They didn't leave barehanded. Isn't that wonderful how God can move? So as the Israelites journeyed to go worship the God the living God, the Pharaoh had a change of mind. He had second thoughts. He decided, why did I let him go for? He got all his army together, their chariots, the horses, the foot soldiers. They all ran after the Israelites. And I don't know how far away they were, but there was over 2 million, almost 3 million, a little over 3 million, counting the women, children, not counting the animals either. So God led them. And as they came to the Red Sea, there was nowhere to go. Dead end. Now the Israelites were really frustrated and were mad at Moses. And they told Moses, you should have left us there. Even though we were slaves, we had food, water. But you sent us here to die. They were at the point of trying to kill Moses. But after a little while, God told Moses, stretch out your staff. Moses stretched out his staff, and the Red Sea separated. And God sent this powerful wind in the middle, and it dried up the ground, and the Israelites walked across on dry land. And I sometimes wonder, as I'm in traffic many times, there's so many cars and it takes so long to get to my destination. And I wonder, what kind of time would it take for 3 million Israelites to cross the Red Sea? I'm frustrated in traffic, and there's nowhere 1 million. And yet, it's like it takes forever. And yet 3 million people cross the Red Sea. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of people. But anyway, just as they completed their crossing, the Egyptians caught up to them. And as the Egyptians rode down in the Red Sea and they started crossing the Red Sea, in the midst of their crossing, God allowed those walls of water to engulf those Egyptians. As they were trying to cross, the wheels fell off, the horses were tripping, the chariots were broken. And the Bible says that everyone drowned. Not one was left alive. So God took care of the enemy. But despite, the moral of the story is, the Israelites saw the miracles that God showed every single time. Well, you would think they would remember that. When they got to the Red Sea, they started complaining. Why couldn't they remember all the plagues that God sent? Not one of them touched them. Why couldn't they think, well, we're at the dead end and God's going to prevail. He's going to find us a way. There's no way out. Humanly thinking, there was no way out. What are they going to do? They can't swim across. Reminds me when I was a little boy, I let the rabbit out of his cage, and the rabbit ran away. And my 2 brothers told my mom, and she come out running. And then she couldn't catch me, and then she had my 2 older brothers run after me, and I'm running. They couldn't catch me. until I came to the lake. Just as I confronted the lake, there was nowhere for me to go. So my brothers got me and brought me to my mom. I don't remember what happened. I don't think I got a spanking. But the point was, I say that because I kind of know what it felt like when the Israelites had nowhere to go. What do? You can't swim across. But God provided a miracle for them. Our God is a powerful God. And sometimes we need to really think about who we serve. What are we doing here on earth? Are we born just to go get a job, eat and sleep, get up, go back to work, come back, go back to bed, same old day after day? That's not what it's all about. We are all here waiting on Christ because we were meant to already be with Christ. But because Adam and Eve sinned, God has to purify us. Just like how you purify gold. You burn it to get all the blemishes out. Well, God sent his Son to this earth to take this world's sin. He didn't sin, but he said, I'll take that man's sin. I'll take that woman's sin. I'll take that child's sin as I die. That way, for the asking, we can be forgiven. So we're waiting for Jesus says he's coming to get us. He's going to prepare a place for us. This is not our home. We are here waiting for the rapture. Some of us will never die. Some of us will make the rapture. So that's what we're doing. We're waiting here. And Christ is coming soon. So what do we do while we're waiting? We can follow the 10 Commandments. They are so easy to follow. There's nothing hard about them. As a matter of fact, our nation uses most of these commandments for our laws. God is the one that established law on this earth. So do the 10 Commandments. Exercise the golden rule. Do unto others as you would like it done unto yourself. Some of you are at wit's end. You figured, well, I'm not doing very well. I'll be glad if God takes me. I wish he would take me today. Listen, you wait for your time. God will tell you when it's your time. There's many things you can do. It's not all about money. You can do an act of kindness. You can speak some wonderful words to others to encourage them. Little things. That's what God looks at. Little things. We're all waiting for the big things that we can do for God. But God says, as you've done it unto them, you've done it unto me. We need to remember, it's the little things that count. Show that beautiful smile that you have each and every day. That's what makes you look so wonderful. Accompany that smile with acts of kindness. Don't be in a hurry to leave, because we're all leaving. When Jesus comes, we're going to be caught up in a fraction of a second. We'll be in a glorified body, and that's where we will live forever. We're going to live forever, whether you like it or not. You're either going to live in hell or you're going to live in heaven. It's your choice. God is not going to force anybody. God is a loving God. God loves us so much that he took his son that he loved. This is my son, in whom I am well pleased, in whom I love. He allowed him to be tortured, to give his life. By giving his life, he took this world's sin for the asking. We are forgiven, and now we can live with him through eternity. And it's all going to be joy, joy, joy. It's all going to be joy. It's not going to be boring. It's not going to be against our will. We're going to love it. I want to read you something that most of you probably know, but it's the footprints in the sand. One night, a man had a dream. He dreamed he was walking along the beach with the Lord. Across the sky flashed scenes from his life. For each scene, he noticed two sets of footprints in the sand. One belonged to him and one belonged to the Lord. When the last scene of his life flashed before him, he looked back at the footprints in the sand. He noticed that many times along the path of his life, there was only one set of footprints. He also noticed that it happened at the very lowest and saddest times of his life. Well, this really bothered him, and he questioned the Lord about it. Lord, you said that once I decided to follow you, that you'd walk with me all the way. But I noticed that during the most troublesome times in my life, there is only one set of footprints. I don't understand why. And when I needed you the most, you would leave me. The Lord replied, my precious, precious child, I love you and I would never leave you. During your times of trial and suffering, when you see only one set of footprints, it was then that I carried you. That's a wonderful poem, but it's true. That's how God feels about us. He loves us so much. You have no idea. We have no idea. He's a precious God. He's a loving God, a powerful God. He just wants us to confess our sins and ask him to be Lord of our lives. He's not going to push himself on us. It's your choice. You want Christ in your life. You can tell him. You can say, Jesus, forgive me of my sins. Be Lord of my life. Walk with me. I need you. You are my Lord. It's as simple as that. So, folks, I thank you for watching again. And hopefully you'll watch me again next time on God is Real. Good day.